Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very presence
Putting Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes, I mean...
Watch AOC absolutely humiliate herself during an interview after she gets asked one question by the interviewer about Donald Trump. Guys, this is good, and it is bad for AOC, all right? She was interviewing with an arguably friendly source, all right? This is the morning source on NPR. Very far left source, as you know. They pretend to be objective and neutral and all that. Oh, we're state funded, so we're neutral politically. Yeah, because that's ever been the case in our human history. It is bad, so we're going to get right into it. It's going to be a lot of fun, but first, do me a big favor here. Like our video and share it around so we can keep bringing you all this great, hard-hitting content. As always, Patriots, I'm your host, Arian, and this is Resist the Mainstream.
I think other Democrats are watching their words.
I think it's certainly possible, but I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot think of or point to any individuals who have said that. I do think that there are Democratic members of Congress who are preparing for that possibility.
How do they prepare?
I think they look to the possibility of litigation. I think they're saying, you know, do we have the best teams possible in order to carry out our work?
Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very presence
Putting Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, here's the deal. In the United States, there is a jury where we are judged by our peers, and he was found guilty in court on 34 felony charges. If people want to say it was weaponized, I mean, it is hard-pressed to say that there's a partisan argument for that.
In what way? I love that question, all right, because it's good for two reasons. One, if somebody does know what they're talking about, you can ask about that, and it's a great way to just learn more and listen to somebody who knows about something. If they are talking out their you-know-what, much like AOC over here is, it's also a great question because it exposes them for the frauds they are, and you don't even have to refute them. They just go and they look stupid for what they're saying. Now, as far as this argument about, oh, you have an impartial jury goes, you know, we have that blatant hypocrisy of weaponizing justice, but let's, impartial jury, really? Does anybody actually believe that? Let's not forget that Alvin Bragg, right? One of the guys who infamously, I think was the first one to prosecute Trump, if I'm not mistaken. He ran for his position of district attorney in Manhattan saying, I will prosecute Trump, elect me. And then all these people voted for him. Are we supposed to say now that those people, those constituents would be part of an impartial jury, right? Because he's prosecuting Trump, as you all probably remember, in that same area of New York City. Really, that's an impartial jury. People who vote Democrat en masse in a time where the country is more divided than it ever has been since, I would say, the Civil War. You're going to tell me that those people are going to be impartial? Nobody's buying this crap anymore. AOC is so full of, I can't say the word, but it is so profoundly obvious. And just you wait, guys. There is even more stupidity from AOC in this interview with Steve Inskeep of NPR, who normally, she should be doing great with him. He's a friendly leftist reporter, but it gets bad. Check this out.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Holman was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
Well, that was embarrassing. All right. First of all, notice her key choice of language there. Constituents. AOC is basically saying that illegal aliens are people that support her and that are essentially her voters. I mean, objectively, they can't vote right now. Well, maybe they are anyways in certain ways. I'm not going to speculate on that, but at least by the letter of the law, they cannot vote. And she's basically saying, yeah, they're my constituents, they're my supporters. And of course, she supports giving all of them a pathway to citizenship, as they call it. So yeah, she values those people more than the American people. It's really quite disgusting, honestly. And you can just tell Steve Inskeep is sitting there thinking, oh man, this is so bad for our side. What are we gonna do? You know, when he asked her about the DOJ, you could tell he's just like, this chick's an idiot. Guys, my fellow donkey Democrats, we are screwed. We got to do something about this. You know, he's just thinking about all this internally, but he can't say because he has to maintain that. Oh, I'm objective. I work for NPR. Oh, state-funded media. We're so neutral. It's truly a sight to behold. Now, I do got to say, while it is refreshing to see the media actually hold the Democrats' feet to the fire for once with their stupidity, don't get too excited, all right? Notice how NPR only does this interview after it's so beyond obvious that the American people are sick of this out-of-control illegal immigration problem in the United States. They would not have done this even 2 years ago, let alone 4, 6, or 8. No way. And it really just goes to show who they are. It's essentially clever propaganda, all right? People could say, oh, NPR is so left-wing and biased, then somebody will point to this interview. Look what Steve Inskeep said to AOC. Obviously, they're objective and fair. And then, if you dare to bring up a more sophisticated point of, okay, where was that 5 years ago? Yeah, you're racist. And then, they'll run away or something. Now, let's see just a bit more of this crazy, stupid interview.
To what extent is immigration as an issue part of your problem with working class voters?
I mean, I guess my question would be, what does the word problem mean?
People voting for the other side and not for you.
Yeah.
Feeling that Democrats are not serious about the issue in ways that concern them.
I think that we have a problem on immigration because of the lack of progress that we've had on this issue. And as we know, Republicans weaponized that lack of progress. Of course, there was famously a bipartisan bill last year that the Republican majority in the Senate and also in the House were willing to pass. President Biden was willing to work with them on it. And Donald Trump said, do not solve this problem. As long as it is broken, then it will be politically beneficial for us. And so it is a problem not just for Democrats. It's a problem for the entire country that Republicans do not want to solve any sort of issue with immigration. They are completely uninterested in addressing undocumented people, in addressing a path to citizenship.
Well, they do want to address undocumented people by removing them. I mean, that's what the president is attempting now.
Even then, you see what Republicans did with the Lake and Riley Act recently in their passage with it, in that they authorized the complete gutting of due process. So now you can take a DACA recipient, a dreamer, just accuse them of a crime.
And deport them.
And however, they also understand that they don't even have the infrastructure to do that. So they're actually creating it's not even about creating a deportation pipeline. They are creating a private prison camp.
All right, this is beyond stupid. Notice how she says undocumented people, and Steve Inskeep echoes that word. All right, that is a propaganda term. All right, would you call a drug dealer an undocumented pharmacist? I think not. All right, they are a drug dealer and they are a criminal who's committing illegal acts, much like an illegal alien or illegal immigrant, either or. Even immigrant is kind of, are they really immigrants? That's another question to explore. But all that to say, she's crazy. All right, and also, Lake and Riley Act, really? That's a problem? Guys, the Lincoln Riley Act, all it does is say we got to deport illegal immigrants who commit violent crimes or theft. You're going to say that's somehow evil and terrible and shows Republicans aren't serious about the issue? Are you kidding me? Truly sick stuff. It really is. These people do not care about the American people. And don't take my word for it. Just look at what they say.
Pipeline. So they're still creating pipelines to just increase this problem here in the United States.
Why do you think this issue did seem to be a political loser for Democrats among key groups and key constituencies, if what you say is true?
I think that a lack of a path to citizenship in the United States, the lack of addressing comprehensive immigration reform creates a large population of undocumented people in the United States. And that is allowed to be weaponized in many ways. We have a large population of undocumented people in the United States. Overwhelmingly,
Oh my gosh.
it is not because they crossed the southern border of the United States. It's because they came here in a documented fashion and overstayed a visa and became undocumented. And it is the lack of ability for us to expand paths to citizenship, modernize paths to citizenship over decades that create this bubbling issue that that Republicans are allowed to weaponize.
And you have voters in places like Arizona, which is a swing state that Democrats lost, or Colorado, which is generally a blue state, saying there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of lawlessness.
Yes.
I don't know what.
Well, everybody, that wraps up our clip for today. What do y'all think? I personally think it's outrageous, and I think while the interview by the state-funded media NPR was a good one, they wouldn't have done this 4 years ago, 6, 8, whatever. It's very disingenuous from my point of view. I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, whatever else, and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.